So I appreciate you all being here. I hope everyone's doing okay and warm and with power now. I know some of us lost power yesterday. I think Beth was out almost the entire day. I know David was. Ours flickered a little bit in the morning, but we seemingly kept it on. And obviously, we're doing okay now. Most of what we're going to be talking about today, a lot of you have already seen, with the exception of maybe Carol and Taryn. Taryn, you might have seen it too, but I know everybody else on here has pretty much seen it in large part. I am recording it. I will send the recording out again. It's basically going to be like 20 minutes of me rolling through some goal planning stuff and basically tools that are provided by Keller Williams to help set goals and then also to keep yourself accountable and set up a plan. So we'll go over those. It's three of them. I will send these out as attachments at the end of the day via email, also including the recording link. And then we're going to have plenty of time today for Q&A. Kate threw another Zoom on me this morning. Her, Beth, and myself are meeting at 10:15. So we'll wrap up kind of right before then. So it's not too long of a session today, but that'll also give you plenty of time to catch a break or refill coffee, et cetera, before the 11 o'clock sales meeting. So let's dive right in. All right. So the first thing I got on the screen today is what's called a Life by Design form. This was designed by Maps. It used to be a part of the original Bold. Um, it is a way that you can internalize and visualize how many houses you need to sell as far as a goal. Now, we've done stuff like this before. If you've been in my trainings previously, I call it a lid analysis, which is a little bit different. That stands for lifestyles, investments, and debt. All of that's kind of on here, but a lid analysis I can talk about in 5 minutes, where the Life by Design form takes a little bit longer time. This is a little bit more accurate as far as a true budget. So if you scroll through this form, you can see at the beginning, we have things that would be, say, add-ons or additional things that you would like to pay for in a given year. So vacations, if you want home improvements, if you're saving for college funds for kids, paying down debt, down payment for investment property, if you want a new vehicle, etc. You're going to put the year uh, total for each of these over in the right column where it says year required. If it's something that you contribute to monthly, so for example, college fund, a lot of times people set up, especially in the state of Virginia, a 529 per kid, and you can make monthly contributions. You can also make annual contributions, but let's say you wanted to put $500 per month into the college fund, you would put 500 here and then 6,000 there. But the year is the most important piece, and then you're going to total it up at the bottom. You can also add categories on here. So, for example, if you have um, something that you want to pay for, maybe it's renovate the beach house or renovate a rental property or I don't know, pay off something else that's on there. You can save up around here too, add to the 401k, etc. So you can add lines as well. Don't worry about this yet. We're going to come back to this because then at the bottom, you're going to do personal expenses and business expenses. Now, if you need to add lines, this is opened in a Google Doc. You can also add, you can import this into like a Google spreadsheet or a Microsoft Excel, depending on who you are and what you like to use, and you can add lines to it. Now, if you notice, the business expenses are going to pretty much mirror what the MREA does as far as categories. There are also certain things on here. So team member splits, if you're on a team, you're going to put that in there. If you're not on the team, you're not going to put that in there. So there are certain things that are going to be zeroed out, and that's okay. But this is meant to be kind of a brain exercise for yourself. Once you total up this number for your business expenses and this number for your personal expenses, you're going to have a total for your monthly expenses. That's when you come up here and you're going to figure out your average gross commission, which you should already know. For if you don't know or if you haven't closed anything, use 10,000. That's about what our office average commission is. It's also about what the industry average is. The industry average sales price has gone up a little bit depending on county, but it's pretty close to like the low 400s mark. And the average commission is about 2.5%, which puts you right around that 10,000 mark. 10,000 even also makes for easy math. But essentially, you're going to figure out if I make $10,000 per check and I need $200,000 to equal this number, and this number, then I need to sell 20 transactions, or 200,000 would go here, divided by 10 would be your total number of transactions. So it's a way that you can figure out your total goal. Now, it is okay if this number scares or intimidates you, because what we're going to talk about next is how to plan your activities off of these goals. Now, if you're somebody like myself, what I do is I take that number and I round up a little bit, or I even add some cushion. So, for example, if I want to buy a new vehicle and it's going to cost, say, $17,000, I'm going to put 20 here. If I want to put a new down payment for an investment property, I might put 75 here, even though it might be able to find something that's 50 to 60. Same thing with additional debt reduction. If I owe $18,000, I might put 20 there. So it's okay to build in some cushion, because your activities moving forward and what we're going to hold each other accountable to are going to be based on this goal number. And if you aim high and miss, you can still land where you need to land. More importantly, Gary Keller says, and this is echoed through Keller Williams, but he says, you set goals not so that you can achieve them, but so that you can become the person that it takes to achieve those goals. So if my goal on here is 50 transactions, realistically, I might need 40. But if I become the person that can do the activity that's going to sell 50 houses a year, I'm going to have no problem hitting 40, and it's going to set me up for more success moving forward. So it's okay to stretch yourself here. This is what it means by grand total to thrive. These should be big goals, and they should be a little bit intimidating. The most important thing is to make sure your personal and your business expenses are covered. So that's another way of looking at this, is these two expense numbers are going to give you one total. And then if you scroll up, adding these things in, these are not necessities, but they're things to fund a larger thriving life. So adding these in are going to do the same thing by stretching your goals. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts on that before we move on? Cool. All right. Again, I'm going to send you guys a copy of this, and I think you should work on it. And then if you want, you can send me a copy once you've filled it out, and we can talk more in detail about it in one-on-one coaching. But this should be a good way of motivating you. Hopefully, it's a good time of year to do it, leading into 2025. Also, when you find days or weeks where you're struggling, or you're not feeling motivated to go to work or do the boring things or the consistent things, this can be an easy form to go back and look back at and say, okay, what are my goals? What's my why? Maybe my why is to pay for that Disney vacation for the kids that I haven't been able to do in the last couple of years. And so that can be, you can add like details into here. So I might say vacation fund, Disney trip with the family, and then put the budget here. And that's going to keep it front of mind or top of mind for why I'm saving. It's not just a vacation for time off. It's a vacation for lifetime of memories with the kids. All right. So once you have that total, you're then going to move on to what we call a GPS. GPS and 411 are two of the kind of interchangeable tools that Keller Williams World uses for goal planning. I'm going to show you our 2025 Eden Properties one, surprise, Mike, that is going to go over what we are doing to reach our goals this year. Now, a GPS stands for, it's also nicknamed a 135, but it's one goal, 3 priorities, and 5 strategies to get there. So the easiest way to illustrate that is by showing you a real one. Now, I'm going to send a blank one out to everybody later. But essentially, your goal is always going to be in terms of closed units. It's not necessarily a volume or a sales volume amount. The reason why is we can control our units. We cannot control our sales price within reason. We can obviously target certain activities that are going to increase our average sales price. However, we can't necessarily dictate what a client's budget is. And if somebody comes to me and says they want to buy a house, I'm going to help them. It doesn't matter what their average sales price is or what their goal budget is. So you always want to make your goal in terms of units. And that, again, that comes from the Life of Design form. Now, to put this bluntly too, our goal is 2 agents right now. So for those of you that don't know, Mike's on my team. And so this is 2 of us combining our goals. It's not just mine. And so it's okay that my goal is quite higher. And this is going to be the 2 of us doing all of these strategies together. We're going to have 3 priorities that are going to help us reach this goal. Another way of thinking about this is these are our 3 lead levers. You've heard me talk about this before, but it's the 3 systems that we're going to put in place that are going to generate leads or generate our business opportunities. Number one, and this is going to be the same for all of you, is going to be your database. We intentionally build a database, and the reason why we start and stress that so much is it is interacting with people that you already know. It is proven to have the highest return on investment, and it's the easiest thing to start with. So with your database, when you're building it.
I can hear it through the computer.
What, Lynn? Okay, I'm gonna keep you muted, Lynn, while we keep going. We're gonna build our database out. Now, most of your strategies are gonna be built around that 36 touch, which we've talked about before. That is your communication plan with your database. Now, I have ours listed here, which is more than 36 touches because we do certain touches around these events. You do not have to mirror ours. Matter of fact, there's going to be stuff going out from the office a little bit later on that's going to give you several examples of a 36 touch that you can internalize and do yourself. We also just did a database training a couple weeks ago that went over one. One of the strategies, though, is also going to be how many people you need to add to the database every single month. So we've talked about this before, but your database at a minimum should be this number. Your goal unit should be 10% of your database count. Really, it should be like 5% because the return on investment is much lower, or the likelihood of people moving out of our database has been lower the last several years for a combination of reasons, but in large part due to higher interest rates and the market just being a little bit slower than it has been in the past. What I mean by that is the number of your database, the people that are in there, on average, 5% of them will move this year. So if it's 5%, that means I need 1,600 people in my database. If I have 400, my gap is 1,200. So I need to figure out how am I going to add 1,200 people to the database? Well, that's 100 per month, and that becomes a strategy. Now, our gap is not 1,200. It's a little bit less than that. So that's where our gap comes from, is we need to be adding 60 people to the database every single month. Also, and then we break it down by agent. And then when we get to the next tool, I'm going to show you where you can even break it down into weekly. The rest of the strategies are a 36 touch. Then we move on to a second priority. Now, this does not have to be agent referrals. Matter of fact, for most of you, it should be open houses here. And then you should have 5 strategies on how you're going to systematically approach each open house. It might be door knock on this many doors, put this many signs up, advertise on social media this many times before it. This is what I do when I'm there, and this is how I follow up. Then you would move on to priority 3. Now, our priority 3 is a little bit different because all of the info that we use for this is in one resource. And so we're doing all of these things out of one tool. However, it can be one of these. It can be something that's not listed on here. Essentially, you want to find a third strategy. Now, for a lot of you, what this should be is a way to grow the database. So, for example, you may have database, you may have open houses, and then your third priority might be networking. Or it might be events, but it might be surrounding those events that we talked about last week that don't cost money, like your seminars or your networking group can be in there, etc. But this is what's called a GPS or a 1-3-5. We've talked about them in the past, but I want you to start getting familiar with them, because what you're going to do with this is you're going to take your closed units and your strategies, and you're going to move them on to what's called a 4-1-1. Now, this is the tool that gets used a lot more often because it's an accountability piece, and it also allows you to start planning your week. So our closed units for the year is going to go in the annual goals. So we're going to put 80 there. Then we're going to take, okay, if I want to close 80 deals a year, how many deals a month is that? It's 6.66666 repeating. So we round up. So I say, okay, I want to close 80 deals a year. I got to close 7 a month. If I'm going to close 7 a month, how I'm going to do that is these weekly activities. Now, on the 4-1-1, we're going to do week by week. So right now, it's the start of the second week in January. So I would have already written out all my activities for week 1 last week, And this week, I'm going to come right down week 2 at the start of the week. So I might say I'm going to make this many phone calls. I'm going to add 10 people to the database because my goal is 40 for the month. I'm going to post on social media this many times. I'm going to send out my weekly newsletter or my monthly newsletter to my database. I'm going to send out my agent newsletter to my database, etc. And we're going to go on down the list with each of these items. You're only going to do 1 week at a time because when you move to next week, you're going to do next week's, and then you're going to move to week 4. Now, what a lot of coaches will tell you, and this is how I prefer to do it, is every month I'm going to print out 4 of these blank sheets. And so the start of every week, I'm rewriting out my goals. I'm going to write 80 closed units, 7 closed units. Week 1, I'm going to do week 1. The next week, I'm going to take a fresh sheet and I'm going to write out 80 closed units, 7 closed units, and do week 2s of activities, and then so on and so forth. You can also add annual and monthly goals. You can break out your database ads here too. So that example I was just giving, if I want to add 720 people to my database, which is what our goal is, I might put, I'm going to close 80 units in 2025. My next annual goal is going to be, I'm going to add 720 people to the database. Then the monthly goal is going to be, I'm going to add 60 people to the database per month, or it's going to say I'm going to sell or close 12 or 7 units per month. So you can start breaking these goals down. Then you're going to do the exact same thing for weekly goals. You can take, okay, if I'm going to add 60 people to the database per month, that means I got to add 15 per week. So I'm going to add 15 here, 15 here, 15 here, 15 here, etc. Now, what I do with my coach and what I've started doing with some of you is if you want the extra accountability, fill out one of these on Monday morning or Sunday night. And on Monday morning, you're going to text it to me, a copy of the picture. When you text me your 411, you get to see mine in return. So it's kind of accountability piece with myself, but it's also for you guys. So if you send me your 411, I send you a copy of mine back. And then at the end of the week, I get to follow up with you and say, okay, how did your week go? When you go through these weekly goals, you can cross them off as you do it. So if it's Thursday and I've added 15 people to the database, I'll put a line through that goal because I've done it. So then on Friday, when I talk to you, I can say, hey, how did your week go? You can say, I hit all my goals, or I did everything except for XYZ. And then it's a coaching conversation of, okay, how can we get you to make sure you make that goal next week? Or what could you have done differently to have hit your goal? Maybe you had on there that I need to make 100 contacts and I made 80. Okay, well, what happened? Well, my kid was sick on Thursday, so I was out of the office. Okay, that's reasonable. You can't control that. Life happens. Let's make sure we hit 100 next week, and you move on. Or it could be, I just didn't devote enough time on my calendar to get all the calls in that I needed to. Okay, what can we do differently moving on to next week where we can have enough time to make those phone calls or make those conversations? Okay, that was a lot thrown at you quickly. What questions do you have surrounding the GPS or the 411 or the Life by Design form, or do you have comments or thoughts surrounding it, if any? Nothing?
So just to be sure, you said that agent referrals for most of us should be open houses, but
Yeah, so
those can be ones we
yeah,
hold for other agents, right?
correct. Yeah, and
Okay.
that's a great point. So let me make a copy of this real quick and I can show you. So what I would do is I would do database. I would put your closed unit goal here. I would do database for most of you. And your first strategy is likely going to be add this many people to the database. It might be set up a monthly email. It's going to be 4 quarterly calls because that's a part of everybody. It might be a certain number of handwritten notes. The one we did yesterday with the leadership call was 2 events. And then this one was 6 handwritten notes. And obviously that's not 36. So the last one was 12 items of value or pop buys, or this can be another email. So you can do an email the first week of the month and the third week of the month. And the third week of the month would be offering an item of value. Maybe it's in a free home value assessment, or it's a recipe or it's tips to keep your HVAC running in the winter. It can be all kinds of things. It can be a coupon from a vendor or a partner, but you can quickly see, okay, we have 10, 12, 12, 24, 12, 36. The goal here is to set up a 36 touch. 5 strategies is the preferred amount. You should have a minimum of 3. It's okay to be 3 to 6. So like in that case, we had a 6th one. That's okay because most of those are going to be devoted towards the same thing. Your second one would be open houses. And this might be host 2 open houses per month. Then it might be door knock 40 doors per open house. Put up 10 signs per open house. Call, text, email everyone that signs in by Wednesday of the following week. And then you can have a 5th one there, social media or something like that. If you don't want a 5th one, this is plenty. Now, a quick point too on these things, the more specific, and I'm sure you've heard the acronym SMART goals, but the more specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and I forget the T, but the more specific and measurable you can be on these strategies, the better. Timely was the T, duh. So, for example, give yourself a deadline of each goal that you're going to do, or per month is the timely piece. Specific is what the activity is. I'm hosting open houses. Measurable is 2. So how many am I doing every month? Attainable, don't put 8 if you can only do 2. And then realistic is kind of the same thing. If you're doing open houses on the weekend, the max you can do them is probably 8. Probably a Saturday, Sunday open house. Also being within reason, and this is kind of to Chris's question, if I'm hosting open houses for other agents, I need to be realistic about how many of those are going to be available. Our office has an office-wide goal where we can generate more listing opportunities because we desperately need them. However, if you look around the office, we only have like 20 active listings right now, and some of those are by teams, and the teams do their own open houses. So you're only going to be able to do but so many open houses every month until we get more, which is why your third strategy, your third priority, may be something devoted towards getting more listings, which is what ours is it's targeting something for more listings. That's a great question, though. Do you have any other questions kind of around the GPS before I move on to the Q&A section? Does that make sense though, Chris? Cool. Yeah, and then your last one would be something like networking or adding to the database, like a specific strategy. Now, the beauty of open houses is this will also grow your database. The more people that you get to sign in, the more leads you meet at open houses, that's going to add to the database. This could also be a type of event. Maybe you want to host a first-time homebuyer seminar every month or every other month. That can be your priority. If you can nail 3 lead levers, you will hit whatever number this is. The reason why is no matter how big this number is, this just generates what these 3 priorities are. So whether I have 25 closed units as my goal, or I have 100 or 200 closed units as my goal, all that means is the size of my database needed, how many open houses I need to be doing, and how much networking or how many people I need to be adding to the database strategy-wise. This goal can be whatever number it possibly needs to be. Matter of fact, there are agents in this company where this number is going to be hundreds of units and their lead levers are the same 3. You don't have to have 50 lead sources to sell a lot of houses. You have to be very good at 3 of them. Now, within reason, as you start growing a large team, you may add a 4th or a 5th. However, a lot of these things overlap. So for example, our event strategies are part of our database plan for our team. Open houses, Mike does open houses. So he might have an open house priority on his GPS, where my GPS has agent referrals, which is to generate listings to get open houses for Mike. And so they overlap with each other, and they should if you're on a team. But even if you're not on a team, it's okay if your 3 contribute to each other. Same thing with the adding to the database strategy. If it's circle prospecting, Doing all of these activities are going to help generate listings, which are going to create more open house opportunities, which are going to add to the database. And so they should build upon each other. Now, I forgot to mention this earlier. Your priorities should be in rank of priority, for lack of a better word. Meaning your strongest lead lever should be number one, then number two, then number three. Your strategies do not necessarily have to be in a hierarchy or a rank. There are just 5 strategies. So adding to the database is just as important as sending out our monthly newsletter, as making the quarterly calls, as doing the events, etc. For open houses, doing the open houses is just as important as putting up the signs, as door knocking, etc. So your strategies do not necessarily have to be in hierarchy order, but your priorities should. And that's also how it's going to work for time devoted to it. So for example, we devote more time to our database and all the things we do surrounding our database, going back to our model, our monthly newsletter, our events, adding people to the database, doing the quarterly calls, doing the handwritten notes. That's most of my lead gen time every single day. Agent referrals, I basically devote 1 day a week to agent referrals for myself personally. That's when these quarterly calls take place. That's when the social media posts take place regarding agent referrals. Obviously, family reunion and mega camp, that only happens twice a year. So that is taken care of those days, and adding to the database, kind of same thing. Circle prospecting, this is, again, it's about a day or 2 a week, whereas this happens every single day because most of our business comes from our database. These are additional lead levers. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. All right, so for the last 10 minutes, does anybody else have any questions either regarding what we've talked about today or in relation to where they're at in their business or what they got going on or what's to come in 2025? Lynanne, I see you got your hand up. What's up?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. When you're on a team, do you merge your database or do you keep your database and the other person's database and the other person's database? How does that work on a team?
90% of the time you merge the database.
Okay.
It depends on the team, but most of the time you're going to merge the database. Now, there are occasions where you might keep some of the clients under your own, or not clients, some of the people under your own. So for example, and this isn't real, but I'm going to use it to illustrate my point. If Mike has a lender that he works with on our team that's not one of the team preferred lenders, he can keep that person on his database and then merge in everybody else to the Eden Properties database. Without getting too in the weeds, when you join a team, there is a team command account. When you are the team owner, so for example, myself, I have 2 command accounts. Really, I have 3 command accounts because I have a pro coach account that's for productivity coaching. But for this argument or conversation, I have an Eden Properties account, and I can actually show you what this looks like. So if I click up here, I have Eden Properties and I have myself. Most of my contacts have been added or merged under the Eden Properties. When Mike logs in, he'll see the same thing. He'll see lead agent, Eden Properties, and then he'll have Mike as his personal one. There's a lot of overlap that takes place in that. That's more getting into the command weeds that Rachel can help you with if you end up joining a team or starting a team. But for the most part, that's a good question. You're going to merge your database. And a lot of the reason why is the team should be taking care of a lot of this. So for example, when Mike's people enter our database, and I don't mean to keep using Mike as an example, but it's easy to illustrate the point. His people that are in our database that are tagged correctly, they get sent the newsletter by the team. He doesn't have to do anything. That's why he's on the team. So same thing with some of these things like events, like all the event planning and the invites and the stuff surrounding the event. Mike basically adds the people to the database, tags them correctly, and then the activities take place on his behalf. Now, he does still do the 4 quarterly calls to his people. And if he does handwritten notes, he's still writing the handwritten notes. So there's a little bit of blended activities there. But that's a really good question. You definitely want to confirm with whatever team you're exploring joining, and then they will be able to do it. Now, some teams, and I'm going to use William Close Group as an example because I know them, they use a different CRM. So your command may stay the exact same. You're just going to export those people and import them into William Close Group CRM, which I believe is still Follow Up Boss. But you're going to import them into their database on a totally different CRM, and then they have all of their activities on there. There's no right or wrong reason. It's just team preference. That's a good question. All right. Any other questions or thoughts? Cool. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone being here today. I know it was a little bit of a short one. I hope that gives you some thoughts to move forward with some goal planning and some activities. Hopefully, you would have done some of this already if you were a part of the business planning at the end of last year. But I know that was a little bit ago. And so, and things may have changed, or you may just be in a different mindset now. So it's always good to revisit it. And then this is what's going to help hold you accountable to your activities. So basically, you take Life by Design, figure out how many houses you want to sell. You import that into a GPS and start thinking about where are those closed units going to come from in 3 priorities. Start coming up with strategies. I can help review these strategies and help you think of ideas too. So if you can't think of 3, 4, or 5 for each, that's okay. I really want you to focus on the goal and the priorities, and we can come up with strategies together as a coach. And then we'll talk about 411s too. We really are making a strong push from the leadership side of things to use these tools effectively, because it holds you accountable to what you're looking to do goal wise. And that's how we're going to reach those goals. So again, I'm going to send out an email here later today that's going to have blank attachments of each of these. And then I'll also include the recording from today. So I know some of you had to come on and off for calls, etc. But if you want to kind of rehearse or look back at the recording, you obviously can. And then let's set up some times together where we can go over your goals. If you want to fill out a GPS, a Life by Design form, and a 411 and send that to me, that would be greatly appreciated and considered homework. And then we can start really hitting the ground running. Cool. All right. That's all I have for today. I'm going to jump off here and jump on the next Zoom I have. And then I will see hopefully most of you back at 11 o'clock for our sales meeting via Zoom.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will
Thank
see
you.
y'all in a
Thank
little bit.
Awesome.
Sorry
Bye-bye.
about the interrupting sound.
No, you're fine. It was just at the very beginning, so it's all good.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's because my headset, I had to put a headset on. So,
No worries at all. All good.
all right.
Um,
Thank you.
Thank you.
cool. I'll see y'all in a little bit.